Bag, let's start the fucking show, huh?
This is the sound of
Remember the 5th of November, gunpowder, treason and plot. I see no reason why gunpowder treason should ever be forgot. Guy Fawkes, 'twas his intent to blow up the king and the parliament. 70 barrels of powder below, poor old England to overthrow. By God's providence he was catched, with a dark lantern and a burning match. Holla boys, let the bells ring. Holla boys, God save the king.
Welcome everybody to the latest episode of the No Name Pod. I am your host. As always, I am joined by my good friend, Mr. Wasted. Wasted, how are you?
I'm all right. Good morning.
Good morning. It's morning where Wasted is. Do you have a beer today?
It's a bit early.
Okay, fair enough. We're going to talk about conspiracy theories today, and we're going to reference a few, and we'll talk about have they gone too far? Is there any validity to them? Where do they stem from, and why do people believe in them? But we're going to start the episode off by talking about a definition of a word called apophenia. This word changed my opinion on conspiracy theories. It opened my eyes to a different side of them. Really, it's more of a clinical definition, and it's what psychologists use to determine whether or not somebody is paranoid or has maybe problems. But the word is apophenia, like I said, and the definition is as follows. The tendency to perceive a connection or meaningful pattern between unrelated or random things, such as objects or ideas. What psychologists call apophenia, the human tendency to see connections and patterns that are not really there, and it gives rise to conspiracy theories. So, apophenia it's a symptom of a psychiatric dysfunction. It's not really a disorder. It's not really something that can be diagnosed and treated as in schizophrenia, but it's definitely a symptom. So what are your thoughts, Wasted?
I think that can definitely be part of it. In some
Absolutely.
cases. But obviously you're looking at patterns of history, and also just people finding out information very quickly about certain situations that, but mostly it's a sort of mistrust, isn't it? The fact that people have the ability to be able to look into these situations more and quickly means that, I think that's definitely part of it, though. There are people who make these connections, as in they see them more readily than other people.
I don't know
how far that goes.
Well, I think it goes pretty deep. You sent me an article today, and I think this maybe defines it to a T. It involves the shooting that happened in Las Vegas back in, 2019, I believe it was? Or maybe earlier than that. But 2017, sorry. And Jason Aldean was playing at the country music festival that was there that, of course, went very wrong, right? It involves the Illuminati card game and how it predicted the Jason Aldean concert and how it predicted the shooting. So basically, how it all intertwines is that there's a card in the game that has Las Vegas in it, and there's the Jack and the Ace of Spades. So if you take the J and A, that equates to Jason Aldean. And if you take the Jack as a number and the Ace as a number, that also signifies 10-1, which is the date of the concert and also the shooting. And to sum it all up, Jason Aldean also has a tattoo on his left arm of the same Jack and Ace of Spades. So I look at this and say, well, first off, it's very interesting, but is it proof that there's a conspiracy there? Or is it just a coincidence? So the apophenic mind, if that is a word, would look at that and put those connections together and say something very, very sinister is up. Wasted?
Well, yeah, this is like a proper, like, old school conspiracy, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Like Hillary Clinton is actually a lizard. You know, if you're going to go all the way, you might as well come up with some really crazy, like, thing. But it's a set of coincidences, maybe. But he also, like, I think it's conspiracy theories go further, as in, because he left the stage before the shooting started also. That also plays into it. But yeah, it is I mean, the definition of conspiracy theory, I always think of it as it's an unfounded story, whereas the actual definition is like people, colluding together, conspiring. So there's no proof of any collusion apart from that. It's more of like a crazy or unfounded story that this card game is basically predicting everything that happens. So I mean, that's it's a fun one, isn't it?
Absolutely, it is. Absolutely, and I think we've talked about this board game on our show before, and how it's just like you said, it's a fun one because it's a game and it's a mass-produced game, and there's so many relevant stories that can be attributed to certain cards in this game, and this is just another one, right? I mean, I think we talked about the Donald Trump card before. The New World Order, the Twin Towers, and how the cards in those games represent actual events that happened. And of course, this game was published or released. I believe it was in the 1970s, so way before any of this happened.
Yeah, especially and the Vegas one is an even more. There are 450 cards, though, aren't there?
There's a ton of them. Yeah, I don't know the exact number, but yeah, you're definitely on the right track.
So it's quite a broad scope, but still, the fact that 4 or 5 of them are coming true. I mean, that's just one of them coming true kind of is something. But yeah, this particular one is so specific and so it's much more specific than the other one. The other ones just show like an image of Trump, his hair, maybe some towers or something, a terrorist attack. But this is. The A and is it J and A? Jason.
The J and A, yeah. And then the other ones I kind of equate them to like Nostradamus predictions. They're so vague, right? So you can really make them into what you want.
It's sort of this one, the Jason Aldean one. It suggests a sort of prior knowledge to what was about to happen, like they planned it, and then
100%.
Then he was rewarded with like the best-selling country song in the next year.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he went on a sort of PR trip afterwards, didn't he? He was like the face of, and also all the gun control thing that kind of mixed in with it.
Absolutely, he was an advocate for the right to bear arms and was very vocal about it, apparently. And he changed his tune. Pun intended there, obviously. He changed his tune after the shooting, and after the Vegas shooting, he changed his tune on his whole stance on gun control and became an advocate for more gun control. And like you said, he was hushed off stage pretty quickly, and no word to the crowd as to what was going on when it was. I don't want to say clear, but it may have seemed a little obvious that he knew something was wrong. Maybe he didn't know what was actually happening, but he was under the impression that something was very dire in that situation. Now, going on to his next tour, which was subsequently canceled, the name of the tour was They Don't Know. It was the They Don't Know tour, and it was canceled before it even started. Which is suspect, which is very suspect also, right?
It's kind of triggering that sort of thing triggers the conspiracy theory community, if there is one. People who are looking for signs and they see things like this. It sends them onto the internet looking around for things, and I don't know. There's an element to the fact that you can find whatever you're looking for because the internet has everything.
Sure.
So you can always even with the Maui fires, the thing that triggered everybody to start going was that Biden said they were laser focused on, helping with the fire, with the response to the fire, Maui fire.
Did he really? I didn't hear that.
That's the sort of thing that kind of triggered it off at the beginning.
Sure.
It was from that point that it all just maybe spiraled out of control, depending on what you think about all these different things.
Wasn't also the connection between the Vegas shooting and Maui, wasn't the sheriff or chief of police the same guy? Like, wasn't he transferred or took a job?
Yeah, Pelletier.
Yeah.
He was commander of the 4th District in Las Vegas. and then afterwards he moved to, he was brought into Maui afterwards, and then this happened. And he was the first non-Hawaiian police chief in Maui.
That's right. He's also the unluckiest police chief in the States.
But he was also probably brought in because of the celebrities that are in that area.
And there's a lot.
Yeah.
In the world of conspiracies, there's a lot there. And, you can start, like you said, with the direct energy weapons. You can talk about, there's conglomerates of land, there's of companies that own a vast majority of land out there. And I think it's BlackRock that are involved in almost all the land deeds or land titles out there. And this is just them increasing their hold on the rest of the land. Of course, you have Oprah Winfrey, who, now I don't know if this is true or not. I haven't really dug that deep into it, but there's one story out there floating around saying that her house was spared on Maui.
Also, this has already happened to her, as in she has a big house there. And, she owns like 2,000 acres or something of land.
Yeah.
But she had a big house there, and she wanted to have like a drive built up to it, like a road built up to it through this land, but she couldn't buy the land. Nobody would sell the land to her. And the same thing happened. There was a fire on this land, and then she was able to buy it at a cheaper price. So she got what she wanted. This happened like 2 or 3 years ago.
Wow.
So it's kind of like foreshadowing what happens now, and that's why people go, they're suspicious of what actually happened. It just adds to it, And there's all these things, with it was the indigenous people of Maui that were like holdouts on selling this land that burned, the land that they wanted for the smart city. There's a build.
Yeah.
They have a program in January, a Build Beyond Barrier program.
Yeah.
Which kind of, so all these things kind of line up. And now, there's a lot of sort of, there's a lot of smaller things that sort of add up. The warning system failed. The hydrants are dry. The children are sent home from school. Yeah. So they all, there's a lot of deaths there. And then non-government supplies are not allowed to go through. So there's all this background just sitting there.
It's interesting. Sorry, go on.
But there is that sort of, there's a sort of, like you said, there's a psychological element to it.
Absolutely. Now,
or a political one.
Sure.
Are these people finding all these conspiracies to basically, they're going against climate change, no matter what. So they don't care if they're right or wrong about, a land grab conspiracy. It's just to debunk the climate change thing. And they may not be against climate change, as in they know that it exists, but politically they think that it isn't for the sort of less wealthy people to take that kind of burden. But how that transfers into the political realm is just a sort of hard no, and we're going to fight you in this kind of crazy world, sort of crazy landscape. So even though conspiracy theorists sound crazy, sometimes they're like actors. They're not necessarily as crazy they come across.
Well, I think there's a lot of times when dealing with conspiracy theories, I think there's some element of truth involved in the discussion, and that's what makes it very intriguing and appealing to certain people, right? Is because there's kind of that little carrot in front of you that you're like, oh, you know what, this could be, and then they follow that, right?
Yeah, and you get these reveals like the card game.
Absolutely,
it's the sort of
absolutely
unbelievable thing. And then there's also historical backup, like the Dodgers Stadium, the Battle of Chavez Ravine, where they basically did like take over the land with police by force and got rid of all the Mexicans and then built Dodger Stadium. Or Seneca Village was a thriving village which they turned into Central Park. So there's always these sort of situations. People say, it's a land grab. In isolation, they look at it and go, that's not very likely, but actually it's happened many times, or a few times before at least.
When I was reading about the Dodger Stadium and Chavez Ravine is the name of Dodger Stadium. It's Chavez Ravine Stadium. Correct me if I'm wrong, but like you said, they basically drove all the Mexicans out of the area just to get the land grab. Wasn't Chavez Ravine one of the guys or one of the main people that were part of that Mexican group of people that were pushed out? Wasn't he one of those people? Then they named the stadium after him. Am I correct?
Probably, yeah. Probably. I mean, it's all kind of like public relations.
Right.
That's almost like if you're in a conspiratorial mind, you're like, that's just a cover up.
Yes,
it's just like
absolutely.
Like Seneca Village, Central Park. I don't know. There's some sort of. They don't just say, they don't call it, we stole this off the native population.
Right.
They couch it like, we're going to help you. You're going to get jobs at like Dodger Stadium. You know, it's always about like, this is going to be good for the whole community thing. So there's always these, the crazy people have a lot of backup. But then sometimes I think it goes almost too far. But it does, in some cases, the evidence just seems to mount up. Like you say, like you think it's like direct energy weapons, you know? But then there's a facility for a direct energy weapon on Maui. So
I heard that as well. To me, that seems far-fetched. I don't know if I believe that one. It just seems too far-fetched.
I think it was proven, though, as in, there was another, I think it's in Mexico, that in the document for the Mexican, like, direct energy facility, they also mentioned that there is one in Maui, too. So, but, yeah, that's the problem, is people's mistrust is also built up throughout history, isn't it? Like, why do people believe in these things? It's because maybe JFK turned out to be true, or, you know, they find out stuff about 9/11 that turns out to be true.
Right.
Like the Saudi officials in the U.S. basically harboring the people who flew the plane. Once those documents come out, I think all these things, and it's like Russiagate, turns out to be completely false.
So it's funny you say that. I'm going to interrupt you right there because I was reading an article in Scientific American in preparation for the show today, and it was about how people who are drawn to conspiracy theories, they share a cluster of psychological features. And I was reading this article, and it, you know, depending on where you get your news from, very rarely is the news unbiased or down the middle. You're either going to have your left-leaning news or you're going to have your right-leaning news, and sometimes it goes to the extreme. And at least the impression I got from this article of Scientific American, they were very, very, very leaning towards the left, and they pretty much reject anyone who believes in conspiracy theories. And the reason I interrupted you where I did was because they went on in the article to say that everything about the Russian collusion in the election turned out to be true, and that they said they didn't give any names and they didn't give any references. They just said it's been proven to be true by ongoing trials of certain individuals. So after that point in the article, I was a little bit iffy on it, right? And it debunks Pizzagate. It debunks a whole bunch of them from that time, basically. And they went on to say that humans seek solace in conspiracy theories, and they rarely find it because they're appealing but not necessarily satisfying. So again, they're basically, they're not putting any credence into any of it being true. And so, but all of this, in the meantime, all the while saying that 25%, so 1/4 of Americans, of the population, they believe that conspiracies are behind many of the things in the world. That's 1/4 of your population believing it, and this article is basically denouncing them, saying they're pretty crazy. And some of the psychological features that they share they summed it up as anxiety and a sense of disenchantment, that it can provide comfort by identifying a convenient scapegoat, making the world seem more straightforward and controllable.
Yeah, I think the opposite of that is that the left uses that kind of demonization of everybody on the right as conspiracy theorists, as like propaganda, as in
yes.
What they actually said about Russiagate is true, as in it wasn't. They didn't get a conviction of, say, Trump, which is the proof of it. But they did find evidence of like $200,000 of Facebook ads, placed by Russian intelligence agencies on Facebook.
Yes.
So there's always some election interference, but definitely didn't prove that Trump was a Russian agent, which is what the political narrative was.
Which is what they were pushing.
But along the way, everybody who said that, when it seemed like it was possibly true that Trump did collude, as you're following it along, those people were a bit like COVID. But people were called like conspiracy theorists or liars at the beginning, and they kept going, and in the end, they turned out to be right.
And especially now, go on, yeah.
Well, no, especially in the case of like RFK Jr. with all his sort of like receipts and proof.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, and the problem is they're not transparent, as in they don't take accountability. Like Fauci, the media covers that up, and that fuels people to go even harder. I think people double down or get crazier about it, because when things do, like, they don't apologize for Russiagate, they move on to the next thing. If they were accountable for it, it would like cool everybody off. But then it becomes, like I said, it becomes this sort of left view right. But they like that. But yeah, it becomes left against right at all costs.
Absolutely.
And then you've got this thing like conspiracy theorists, they call them, but they're really just like maybe political actors or people who are just like driven hard to defeat the other team. It's more like a team sport. Win at all costs.
Absolutely. Now, especially with COVID, I don't even know if we're going to get shadow banned. Is that a shadow bannable word anymore? I don't know. So with the thing that was around in early 2020, do you remember how much people were vilified and made fun of and poked fun at when they suggested that the virus could possibly have come from a lab in Wuhan? Like, you were laughed at if you thought that. But now,
worse than that, you were like censored, and maybe even sort of, you'd lose your job virtually. You were seen as a sort of domestic terrorist at some point. In the final, when they were getting hardcore about it, it was like ruining people's like careers and stuff.
100%.
I mean, in a way, it's how they kind of, they kind of translated that into, if you're a Trump supporter, you're a COVID you're a COVID denier, anti-vaxxer. That they kind of dovetailed it and they used it against Trump. But really, he put through the Operation Warp Speed. He got the vaccines done, and he put through the biggest aid bill in history. So he was kind of the opposite of what they were saying he was, but he did get branded with all that stuff. So I wonder if it's all politicized in that way. So yeah, if you're going down this conspiracy route, you have to be like all in, like just for the fun of it, or you have to be an actor. But if you're just throwing them around, like at your sort of like at work or something, it's probably not going to go down too well for you.
True.
In your career.
Yeah,
you're talking about direct energy weapons at lunchtime.
Yeah, exactly. And so, segue from that would be in July of 2022, McGill University did a study on trends in conspiracy theories and if they actually are getting out of control, if they're becoming more prevalent, if everything is now becoming a conspiracy theory. If you notice now, it seems that as soon as something happens in the world, there's one side defending it or saying that this is what happened and going by everything that's on the news saying this is what happened, boom, 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 boom. And then you have the other side saying, well, hold on, this is a false flag, blah, 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 blah. So who do you believe, right? So the study had some very interesting results. And 3/4 of the people, so we're talking about the United States here. This is where this part of the study was focused on the United States. 3/4 of people in the USA believe that conspiracy theories are out of control. But according to this paper, the numbers say something very different. So over time, and they took the conspiracy theories, they basically took anyone that was out there in the interwebs, whatever, and 6 of them have gained acceptance over time. 11 of them have lost steam, and every other conspiracy theory online, the interest in them or the belief in them has remained the same. And if you get into it a little bit deeper, between 2013 and 2021, so this one is mind control through TV. It was basically at the same. 15% of Americans believe it then, 17% believe it now. Global warming was one that increased. The global warming hoax, it decreased. In 2013, 37% of Americans believed it was a hoax as opposed to 19% now. And the one that jumped the most was contact with aliens, going from 23% then to 33% now. And that was the largest increase in the study. But conspiracy theories involving Bill Gates, the pandemic, 5G, all of that remained the same in that 10-year period. So, what does that say?
Well, to me, it says that people always believed in these things. They just didn't advertise it or put it online, or people never asked them. With the rise of the internet, you're now finding out.
Could be.
So,
absolutely.
I don't know if that makes sense, but
it does. It does. Because that's where I went to as well. It's the whole, is it happening more or is it being reported more, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
As in, it makes it seem like there's more and more of it. Like I said, because it's politicized. Like, I think of it as, is the algorithm also, like, recycling conspiracies because that's what people like. And that's driven by what people like. What advertisers want is what people like. So people like conspiracies, and it seems to fuel one side or the other of the political debate. It's become part of it. And it's hyperbolic, isn't it?
Absolutely.
So more people want to read this story about direct energy lasers than they do just want to read about, I don't know, the boring parts of climate change, which everybody maybe knows already. So you want something new. You know, everybody knows kind of about climate change. So you know,
let's look at going back to the McGill study. There was a comprehensive look at over 104,000 letters written by Americans to the New York Times and the Chicago Tribune from the years 1890 to 2010. And there was no change in the increase in conspiracy theories. There was 2 bumps, and that was just before 1900, and that was during the Second Industrial Revolution, or just before it. And then in the late 1940s and early 1950s, there was an increase in conspiracy theories because of the Cold War. So of that time, like that's a span of what, 130 years, right? Or 120 years. And to only see little blips increases at 2 distinct times throughout that history. It's definitely fascinating. It's definitely something to look at, because just like a good conspiracy theory, I think it's more hype than anything, right?
You mean the increase in conspiracies? Well,
yeah. Sorry, I wasn't clear there. Yeah,
is that conspiracies are the thing that are covering up everything else. While
right.
You're looking at direct energy lasers, you're not looking at the economy or the Ukraine war.
Absolutely.
So,
and
although it seems like a right-wing thing to do, I'm not sure if it is.
I'm not sure it is. And especially with Maui in the Ukraine war, the billions of dollars going over to billions of dollars going over to the Ukraine, whereas citizens of the United States only get $700, right? Like
Maui.
Yes.
Maui victims get $700, which is about
yes.
about the smallest acceptable amount that you could give somebody. And also, they're Americans. The Ukraine money is being funneled back to like American politicians.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Like, what's the real conspiracy here? It's the money laundering going to Ukraine, and it's the same up here with Justin Trudeau sending money over to Ukraine. It's just a money laundering scheme, or it's money going to the WEF, right? The World Economic Forum, and Klaus Schwab, right? It's hard to understand, or it's hard to distinguish what's true and what's not anymore, because there's so many. And that's going back to what we were talking. Are they out of control? I don't know, but it's just.
But the thing is, they fuel it, because like Klaus Schwab was saying that the Maui fires will be good for the Build Back Better or the Great Reset. So they say these like wild things that just just fuels. If Klaus Schwab is saying the Maui fires are good for business or good for the agenda, then you start to think But yeah, there is a sort of, I think you can go back and just say that they're prepared, on the lowest level, you can just say that they were kind of, preparing for this fire, and they weren't really wanting to help the victims that much. They don't really want to help them get back on their feet. They want to get the land so that they can kind of make money from building the smart city. That doesn't mean necessarily that they started the fire. I mean, I don't know how the fire started. Saying that it was a direct energy weapon is a very sort of specific, on-purpose thing. I think maybe they knew and they didn't prepare for it, infrastructure-wise. Like, hydrant's not working. You've got to get it together. It's it's like a hot place. It's known to be hot. Everything has to work. The warning system can't fail.
Yeah, they have the most advanced warning system in the world, and it wasn't working, or they didn't set it off.
Yeah, so a lower level of this conspiracy is just that they got a plan for what they want to do, and they're not really going to help avoid that. It's kind of gross negligence, really. But knowing, but it's knowing, as in they're kind of maybe, the developers waiting are like hoping. Just like 9/11.
Yeah.
They were like, oh, they're going to attack. We kind of know, but we're not going to try and stop it because we want it to happen.
Yeah. Now, one thing I did hear in regards to Maui, and this also applies to Canada as well. So kind of the same thing, but a little bit different. As in Maui, there was sugar plantations on the island of Maui. That was their main business, late 20th century or mid 20th century, before tourism really became a thing. So there was plantations all over Maui, and what they had done was they brought in this type of grass to grow on the plantations. And it was an African seed variety, and so it's not native to the island of Maui. And they brought it over, and they grew it, and they had to take care of it when the sugar plantations were a thing. But since they've shut down, no one has really taken care of this, and it's not. And as it's not a species that's native to Maui, it was prone to fire. And people have been saying, now people I don't know who have been saying to other people I don't know who for years now apparently, that something needs to be done about this grass variety because it's going to start a fire someday. And now that the plantations are closed, nobody is taking care of this area and it's growing out of control. And lo and behold, what happens? Maui burns, right? Now, is that what happened? I don't know. But isn't it a contributing factor? Maybe. And it all comes down to money, right? And people don't want to spend money. They just want to make money, right? And taking care of something like that would cost a substantial amount. And that also applies to Canada. How that is because I don't want to blame Trudeau because I don't know, but somebody, when they were in power, cut funding to the forestry management system in Canada. And we let now we're home to the Boreal Forest. It's the biggest forest in the world. It spans basically all across Canada. And the management system that was in place was basically defunded, and our water bombers were basically left to expire. And even if we were to order water bombers today, the earliest that we can get them is 2029. Because they're on back order for other countries around the world. So the question is, who cut funding to this program that is vital to the control of forest fires? I mean, they go in, they control the underbrush, they cut it out, they clean it, so these burns don't happen. And now, if you're cutting your funding to that, this underbrush takes over, and eventually there's fires like there have been the last couple of years. So who's to blame?
Well, it's politicians, isn't it? They're kind of pandering for votes. There's no votes in preventing a disaster.
That's right.
There's votes or kind of careers in, like, sorting the problem out when it actually happens. Like, Andrew Cuomo or even the Pelletier guy from Las Vegas.
Yeah.
And the Maui, that's, there's money to be made in the disaster. It's kind of like, it's a little bit like disaster capitalism. Create the problem and then that creates a market and then you profit from that. But you set yourself up, the rich people will set themselves up for investing in the potential disaster so that when you need a certain thing, they've got it. They own it. So in that is something you brought up in the notes was insurance companies are now like they're trying to find ways to not pay out these claims, right? When the whole purpose of insurance is to provide relief to people when they need it. And now I've heard that I've heard that they're going to either not pay out claims or make it extremely difficult for the everyday people to get coverage for these areas, right? So they'll just have to give up their land, and that ties back to what we were talking to before. It just goes back to the elites, right? Yeah, well, they're in the position. Well, there's always a loophole in insurance, isn't there? Even dental insurance. Always. There's always something. And I think even like home insurance and stuff. If you leave a window open, then the robbery is like the stuff they take. It doesn't count. Like if you leave your front door open or leave a window open, it's null and void. So there's all these technicalities. But what they like to do is also set up sort of like charities, humanitarian sort of foundations and stuff. I think that's what Oprah and Bezos' wife has done. So that they're going to get all these donations into this sort of charity, and they're going to get like a cut for running it. That's what they. So again, it's the rich people are going to make the money out of it, and the indigenous people are just going to get trampled on because they don't have any like political power. There's no political will, and they don't have any money to fight back. So it's very difficult. And
at what point does it
stop?
You're
a conspiracy theorist.
Yeah, exactly.
And you may be getting tricked, as in the land grab may be some kind of thing real, but then they throw in the direct energy weapon thing to make you all look crazy.
It's nuts, man. It's nuts.
Like William Burroughs said, watch out whose money you pick up.
Beautiful. It's a good quote.
I might have made it up.
All right. So, what else you got going on, Wasted?
Just not much. We've got a couple of guys, look like workers that are sleeping on couches over there. They're passed out. I don't know. They must have worked a night shift and then just come in here. Temperatures are over like 35 degrees here. Humidity's rising.
Are they really? Yikes.
It must be like Maui here. I think it's more tropical here.
Have you ever been to Hawaii?
No.
It's like
but
it's like paradise out there. I don't know. It's a different world, man. Anyway.
I've seen that movie, Blue Hawaii.
With Elvis.
That's what I think of as Hawaii.
I think of Hawaii 5-0.
Oh,
Anyway. Yeah.
And is it Magnum PI? He on Hawaii?
That's right. He was on Hawaii too, wasn't he? Nice.
Like, if he was like in the Maui fires, that would be good. He'd like get to the bottom of it.
He sure would. It'd be amazing. Do you have anything else you want to talk about? It's been a short show so far. I mean, we've only been going for a little while, but do you have anything else you want to talk about?
66 now. Well, there was the Spanish FIFA guy, FIFA head of FIFA for Spain, won the Women's World Cup, and the president of the FA of FIFA like kissed one of the goal scorers or winners on the lip, and it like blew up. And this kind of, to me, it's the same kind of conspiracy or the algorithm triggering. You know, this thing that all kind of Europeans do, they kiss each other a lot, you know, on the cheeks, and they're much more like, more friendly than British people. But suddenly, suddenly he's kind of like getting like accused of sexual assault. So there's a whole. I don't think the football player, the Spanish football player, got kissed. I don't think she actually cared that much. But there's a whole like mechanism or media ready to pounce on it and blow it out of proportion. And loads of activists are going to suddenly call him a rapist and things. You know? So the same as this conspiracy stuff. It's very sort of like built into the algorithm. So,
Luis Rubiales is the Spanish Soccer Federation. He's the president. And so I guess after the Women's World Cup, he gave a kiss to Jenny Hermoso, and it's triggered a crisis in Spanish soccer. This is all according to CNN. And so the FIFA, they suspended him from all football-related activities at a national and international level for 90 days while a disciplinary hearing was underway. Rubiales maintains that the kiss was consensual, and he's refused to resign. And this is all despite facing fierce criticism from Hermoso, her teammates, and the Spanish government. This is a crazy story. Hermoso said the kiss was unwanted, and she and the entire World Cup winning squad have refused to play while Rubiales remains president. Like, so I'm kind of with you. Like, those cultures are, they're more prone to kissing, are they not? Like, I thought it was an acceptable. I thought it was acceptable.
They're always like piling on top of each other, like kissing each other after they score. It's definitely a much more kind of, but there is like a sort of alpha male element in there. But I just think it's a kiss. It's not like he punched her in the face. But in the context in the context of a work environment, you can't do that. As the person, as the person with the power, like the CEO, can't come down and kiss. But they just won the Women's World Cup, and obviously there's photos of him that don't. There's a video of him like grabbing his crotch when he's celebrating a goal as well. So that doesn't look good for him either.
No, but definitely not.
It's just a kiss, isn't it? But it gets really blown out of proportion. But yeah, within the context of work, but in the context of like culture and like football or sports, where people are a lot more sort of physical. I mean, but yeah, they need a sort of women's president. They need a woman president for the women's game. Maybe. Yeah. Or just don't kiss them. I mean, maybe they shouldn't be hugging. But if it's just like a cultural thing that they do anyway, it's possible it can happen.
She went on to say on X, which is formerly Twitter, as everybody knows, she was quoted as saying, "I did not like the incident. I felt vulnerable and a victim of an impulse-driven, sexist, out-of-place act without any consent on my part."
Sounds like she's reading off like a World Economic Forum playbook.
Pamphlet. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. No, I mean, I don't want to downplay her or anything, but I'm with you. It's like, this is the playbook from the WEF for sure.
But maybe that's how you engineer, culture. Maybe that's how you do it. That's just how you make these changes, is that, this filters down into the rest of the world and the rest of, the working cultures around the world, and then you change the behavior. But I just think it's like to me, it's not really something that happens all the time. It's something that could happen because of the situations that you're in. I don't think he was malicious.
No, I don't think he was malicious.
Like sexually assault her, but in the moment that happened. So I don't know. This is a little bit like an overreaction, but they're waiting for these things. That's the whole point, isn't it? The whole sort of machine is waiting.
So everybody knows this iconic photo from World War II, and it's the sailor in New York City kissing the woman. And the headline is "The War is Over," right? Do you know what I'm talking about? Do you know that famous, iconic picture of World War II? That picture also received that exact same kind of criticism a number of years ago, that this sailor had no right to kiss this woman. It was sexual assault. And this is all, of course, decades later, right? And they're saying the same thing. So I see a lot of similarities between that and this. And also the what's the Christmas Carol that was receiving all the backlash from the quote unquote woke media? It's getting cold outside. Yeah, man. It's ridiculous. Like, it's cancel culture at its finest. Like this, I don't know. Should he, let's face it, should he have gone up to her and kissed her? Probably not, right? Do they have a history? I don't know. Nobody knows, really. Was it out of line? Probably. Does it deserve to be front page news on CNN with a big headline in big black bold letters? I felt vulnerable. Probably not. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's political. It's politicized.
Sure.
But yeah, somebody in that position, he has to be more cautious or more aware of who he is.
Absolutely.
But to get into that position, you have to be a bit of a wild man in the first place.
And I think that's a very important point that I think is often overlooked. Normal people don't get to those positions. You have to be a little crazy to get to those heights, to reach those heights. You have to be extremely dedicated, super focused, laser focused to get to those. And
social.
And social. They don't operate on the same realm as us. Do you know what I mean? They don't operate in the same world. They're different breeds. Is that an excuse? No, but it's very, I believe it's an overlooked facet of this whole story, right?
Yeah, all these types of stories, all of them have this sort of element that you're not really dealing with a normal person. You're dealing with somebody who's quite an extrovert.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, he gets up and do speeches, and so I mean, they're open to they can get in trouble quite easily, and they also hold a sort of, I don't know, they're like attracted to the opposite sex,
Absolutely.
So they're going to get more attention in that way, so they're more likely to get in a situation where they could cross the line. But whether it's front page news.
Yeah, exactly. But it is, and we're talking about it. I'm sure we're not the only people talking about it. If you look at the two people that are involved in this one, it's absolutely night and day. Their statements are completely different. She has I felt vulnerable and it wasn't mutual, but he's calling this unjust and it's fake feminism, and he called the kiss mutual and described a conversation in which he asked the athlete for a small peck and she consented. So, it's two very different. Like going back to Maui or Oahu in this case, you go to the Pearl Harbor memorial, and you see one Japanese family looking at a memorial, and you see one American family looking at a memorial. They're looking at the same thing, but they're telling two very different stories, right?
Yeah, but the fact that he is even just in looking for a kiss is maybe not appropriate for him in his position.
Absolutely, I agree.
But they're kind of, I don't know, like I said, the cultural thing. They are more sort of affectionate in daily life. Like when you meet sort of people from Europe, and they want to sort of do this weird kissing on both sides of the cheek when they meet, instead of like a handshake and a stiff upper lip and a gin and tonic.
Yep.
They want to like hug and kiss, and the line is moved much closer. And he just won the World Cup. For him as president of the FIFA, Spanish FIFA, FA or whatever it is, that's a big victory for him. So he went from hero to zero very quickly.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
He could have been like the president that won the Women's World Cup, and he turned out to be a rapist.
He's a rapist. Yeah, he's a rapist now. All right, on that note, Wasted, your show, how's it going?
There's still episodes coming out. I did one on a more in-depth look at the Maui fires, focusing on the Pelletier, Las Vegas to Maui fires. I did an episode like that. Borky's still sending apps in. I think he's got one called Consent is Overrated. I just put it up today.
Perfect. And you're still on Rumble?
On Rumble. Yeah.
Nice.
Only Rumble.
Only Rumble.
So
Check it out.
Yeah.
Sorry, go on.
No, yeah, on Rumble you don't get shadow banned
Yeah.
for weeks on end for
Yeah.
a word that you said.
Rumble's good. I enjoy Rumble myself. There's a few good shows on Rumble. Of course, I guess I'll give Rumble a little plug here too. So obviously your show's on there. Our show is also on Rumble. Find us there. It's under the Cookout. Just type in the Cookout and you'll find it there. And there's a couple of, check out Russell Brand too. He's pretty good. He does a daily podcast too. It's quite good. What else, Wasted? What else you got going on?
Well, we did the show earlier, so now I can go back to bed.
Sorry for waking you up. I apologize.
No, I wake up really early. And I just
It was good to have you again. This was an interesting topic. I think we exhausted it. I think we did a pretty good show this week. Of course, my other show, The Cookout, it's officially dead. There will be no more episodes of The Cookout. We had a big falling out this past week, and it's done. So I'm in the process of changing everything on our sites from Cookout to Scratch Tracks. I believe if you're already subscribed, you shouldn't have to do anything to update. It will update automatically. I'm doing it all on my end. So Trax Productions presents the No Name Pod, and of course, soon Shit Radio is coming back. It'll be under this banner as well, and of course, find the Wasted Show on Rumble, and we'll be up there too. Once again, have a good night, Wasted, or have a good morning, Wasted, and we'll talk to you soon.
Okay, see you later.